So, hi guys, welcome back. Ponderings from Palm Coast. I'm Mark Webb, and today we have a special guest, someone I've been trying to get on the podcast for a while. Been very involved and passionate in things that are happening. Donna Harkin, thank you for coming.
You're
Thanks for
welcome,
visiting.
Mark.
I know that, like many of my guests, you have a strong passion in things that are going on with us and what's happening. You want to take a moment and kind of share a little bit about Donna and let us know what's going on?
Sure. Do you want to know how I arrived here? Or, I'm
You know,
originally,
or you're not an original
I
Floridian.
am not an
Well,
original
then,
Floridian,
there
but
you
I
go.
have spent a lot of time in Florida prior even to moving to Palm Coast because my parents had retired to South Florida in 1986, and we spent a lot of time going back and forth. But originally, I'm born in the Bronx, New York, and grew up on Long Island and went to college in Buffalo, New York. It was very cold, very snowy. The highlight of that was the blizzard of 1977, where the drifts across roads were as tall as the ceiling here. Came home from that and got a job working in as a drug abuse treatment counselor.
Oh,
And
amazing.
I worked in a methadone maintenance and detox facility, outpatient. And that was a really interesting experience for a 21-year-old getting out of college and speaking with 40-year-old heroin addicts and telling them, really you should stop using drugs and get a job, because that's what I thought was going to help them. But it was very interesting and experience, and it really just helped shape me going forward, seeing that there was the need for social services there. And I got married, had a child. Then we moved to New England and lived in Massachusetts in a beautiful community in Massachusetts called Andover, where Phillips Academy is located, and lots of presidents and presidents' children went to this very exclusive high school. My kids did not go there, but at any rate, my husband, my late husband, was a real estate developer, and heard about this great town called the county, actually, Flagler County, and he came down here to see it at the end of 1995, 96, pardon me. And we had just moved, and he came down here to Palm Coast, and he came back home, and he said, I love this place. We have to move there. And I said, but we just moved from one house to another. I'm not ready to do that. And I kind of had a knowledge of Florida. And I, at this point, now had 4 little girls. And I did not want my kids to come and go to school in Florida. I didn't feel like the education they would get was going to be equivalent to what they were going to get in Massachusetts.
And this was in the 90s.
This was
Oh,
in
you were
in
looking
the
at the
90s.
future, huh?
And even back then, Florida's ratings on education weren't great. And I knew that Florida was a very transient place. So people were always moving in and moving out, moving in and moving
Right.
out. I didn't feel like it was going to provide a really stable environment for my kids. So my husband came down here, rented a home. We were going back and forth on school vacations and things like that. And Palm Coast really kind of grew on me. And, I investigated the schools, and the schools were pretty good in regards to the state. They were pretty highly rated in comparison to other schools in the state. So in the summer of 1998, I moved down here with my 4 little girls from 10th grade to kindergarten.
Wow.
And, it was a busy life, and a very full life raising those kids. So I ended up going to work when the kids got a little bit bigger. I went to work for the Flagler County Schools as a paraprofessional in the exceptional student education program. So I would be in the classroom and I would assist with students with disabilities. And after 2 years, I think, my boss, who was the ESE coordinator at the time, her name is Kim Halliday, and she is amazing. She's still with the school district. She asked me to come with her to start a new transition program. So in ESE, exceptional student education, transition is the age between high school and adulthood. So the kids are given, have the opportunity to take advantage of school services until their 22nd birthday. But most in the past had stayed they could stay in the high school, but that wasn't really an adult setting. And we want the least limitations on these kids. So a new program was created called the Trail Transition Program, and I went with her, and I became then an educator, not a teacher, but an educator and my title was employment specialist. And I would bring our students with disabilities out into the community to job shadow and to take trips to learn about work and learn about adult life. And we had a great team, and I did that for a number of years. And then, during all this time, I was not involved in politics. I actually was mostly registered as an independent over my life, and I always voted when it was important, on all the important elections, I would vote. But I wasn't involved because things weren't as crazy, or they didn't seem as I don't know what the word is that I'm looking for, but desperate, thank you. Yeah, things weren't as desperate as they became. So I always voted Democrat. I hadn't really done any protesting since college, when we were holding signs on campus for daycare on campus, which was like an issue at that time. But the Vietnam War had just ended, and so there weren't a whole lot of other protesting things happening. But we then, as I said, hadn't been involved in politics, and then COVID hit. So COVID made us all the educators, we all went home and got at our laptops, and we spoke to the kids, and taught them via laptop, and that was very difficult. And then at the end of that school year, the governor said everybody's going back into the classroom, and they were still talking about people dying, and high numbers of people dying, and it was a scary time, and I was very conflicted about whether I wanted to go back in the fall. I wasn't really, age-wise, I wasn't really able to retire because of the health insurance situation, wasn't ready for Medicare. And then the school district came out with a really nice early retirement package if people wanted to take it, and I did take advantage of it. So I retired in 2020, the summer of 2020. And at that point, that's when I had started to get involved with some political things. I heard somewhere that there was a rally on Palm Coast Parkway at the big intersection by Cypress Point over there, and it was a Biden rally. And I said, oh, I could do that. I knew that we're in a pretty red county, but I'm like, I can show up and be a body on the side of the road with a sign. And believe me, that's really that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to just show up, and be that person. And then at that time, I started to converse with a gentleman whose name was Nico Bergerat, and he was very involved in the party at that time and very passionate. And a couple of months later, there was a rally at the county courthouse for Ruth Bader Ginsburg. and it was protect her legacy, And so I was there, and I saw Nico again. I was talking with him. Turned out we were living in the same neighborhood, and he told me about the Palm Coast Democratic Club. I didn't know there was such a thing. So I joined the club, and I started going to the Friday Forum, which at that time was meeting at the African American Cultural Society. And Mike Cocciola was moderating that, and I started to meet these people, and I thought, this is pretty cool. And then Nico invited me to be on the board, because now I'm a member of the club, and he said, we have a space on the board. Would you like to be on the board? And it was mid-year, so it wasn't election time. They just needed to fill a space. So I said, okay, and I got on the board. And shortly after that, our vice president at that moment stepped back. She didn't want to do it. And so they said, do you want to be vice president? I'm like, okay, what do I have to do, So I got involved that way. And then, unfortunately, Nico became very ill. And he was battling this illness. So following that, I became acting president. And then Nico passed, sadly. And so now I was president. And that's pretty much all of my, how I got to this point. So.
Well, it seems your whole life you've chosen to be of service. From after you got out of college, to be that young and get involved in the methadone, which was the visible treatment of drug addiction. And then, and I'm a product of a psychologist, and my father ran the Department of Human Resources for the state of North Carolina. So every summer, I had no time off. I was volunteering with Special Olympics and all of these things. And it has left an imprint on me as far as my need for service and participation. And I see that in everything you're doing. Were you at some point in that time when you retired and you saw those programs that are so critical in that transition for the disabled to learn to function and know how to find a job and function and get around and whatever? Weren't they on, didn't many of them get cut? And the funding was gone?
Now they are. I mean, at that time, everything was just going along, and we had, Biden got elected, and so there was money for social service at that time. That's one of the things that concerns me today, and, why I stay involved and why we're still standing on the street corners, because although all of us, and I heard you talking about this with Joanne and Roger, about how a lot of things, we're on the same page with the other team on a lot of issues. But when I see, so less government spending is important, but
Sure.
But to go in and just completely dismantle these programs and take away all their funding for education, for students with special needs, for healthcare, for cancer research, for all these things, it's horrifying. It is horrifying, and I think that we're going to feel the effects of that for a very long time.
Yeah, it's taken many, many years to give the poor and the disabled a voice to know that they're equal Americans like everyone else. And you are a product, and you were involved with that and passionate about it. And that shows in the efforts you have. So within the Palm Coast Democratic Club, what kind of goals and objectives or mission, or, if somebody's out there that is looking for a place to find like-minded people, there are a lot of opportunities if you sit there and you feel like we've heard in whether it's First Friday or anytime we've had a booth, we're constantly hearing people come up and go, I didn't know there were others that felt like me. How can they find you and how can they get involved?
Well, I mean, we're pretty easy to find. I think when you Google, Democrats in Palm Coast, I think our club website comes right up there, as does our phone number. And I get our phone number rings through to my cell phone, and I get a lot of calls with people not realizing that they've called the club. They think they're calling the Flagler Democratic Party, which I know you've talked about before on your podcast. That is our Democratic Executive Committee, headed up by Janet Sullivan, and it's composed of each neighborhood is called a precinct, and each one is supposed to have a precinct leader. Most of our precincts do have leaders. I think there still are a couple of vacancies, but our DEC is composed of that and the presidents of the local clubs and caucuses. So we have two Democratic clubs here, Flagler Beach Democratic Club and Palm Coast Democratic Club. And there are also two caucuses, which the Democratic Women's Club of Flagler County is considered a caucus because it doesn't report directly to our Florida Democratic Party. It reports up a different direction. I'm not really sure how that goes. I think it reports to the state Democratic Women's Club. And the Democratic Black Caucus, which was a pet project of Nico Bergerath, who I mentioned earlier. And he really wanted to get that off the ground. So we're very happy to have a Democratic Black Caucus here in Flagler County. And again, that reports up a different avenue, probably to the state Democratic Black Caucus. And what was described to me was clubs traditionally evolved over geographical lines, and caucuses evolve over issues. And Flagler County is a kind of a small county, and it was, but they did decide to have these two clubs. I think originally it was called All Flagler Democrats, and then the Flagler Beach folks who lived in Flagler Beach, who wanted to meet in Flagler Beach, formed their own organization. And as a club, I mean, I would ask you, why would you join a club, any club? Why do you join a club?
So my understanding, and full disclosure, I am a member of the club, is there are the thinkers, the planners, and the doers in most of our society. And the DEC, the Democratic Executive Committee, is made up of elected and officials that set direction and set purpose of what the Democrats here in Florida are doing. They're planners. The club, all the clubs in our club, is more of the doers. We're the horsepower. We're the people that will man the phones during an election time, or like we're doing right now, trying to reinvigorate all Democrats and everybody actually to re-sign up for mail-in ballots, because a lot of people don't know that our governor passed a law that says that your mail-in ballot has to be redone every election cycle. And people don't realize that. They make that assumption. So that's the way that I see the purpose, and what I get out of being in the club is First Friday function and what we're doing with the upcoming, what is that, next month? It's at
Pride Fest.
Pride Fest, in which we'll have a booth to reach out to the citizens here in Palm Coast that we do exist. You know, somebody was reminding me recently, this is the first time that they can ever remember that the Democratic Club has purposely stayed visible after the general election. And you and I think we first met at the African American with Mike, with Coach, was after the election was over in 2020. they shut the office down, they packed everything
Yeah.
up, they put it into a storage, and we went away. And we lost all that horsepower, we lost all that visibility. And thankfully, and we look at this as a positive, that we had the special election, which kept us energized, which kept us pushing for Josh Wheel and the future. And I'm seeing strength at the Blue Forum. Our numbers are staying high. We're really promoting the clubs to let people know that this is an issue that is on top of mind for a lot of people. Sadly, we see it on the news every day, and people are frustrated and scared. So that's what I get out of it. So,
I want to add a piece to
yes,
that.
please.
So, when people, I really meant to bring our mission statement and goals and whatever, but I didn't. So I can't quote it verbatim, but what I can tell you is that the gist of it is to provide a place where we encourage fellowship among local Democrats. And the other piece is supporting our DEC, which is what you were talking about, how the DEC are the planners and the idea people, and a lot of what the clubs do is to carry out or help to carry out that DEC mission. And so part of our bylaws or part of our mission statement is to support our DEC. But the piece that I want to talk about a little bit, just I want to touch on, is that people join a club because it's fun. It's fun to be in a club, okay? You join the chess club or the book club or the cooking club or whatever it is because you want to be with people who share your interests, and you want to have interesting, high-level conversations with these people about what is happening in your group. And I feel like the social aspect of our club is something that some people would, they disparage that, they poo-poo that, that we should just be out there all the time, knocking on doors and spearheading activism and stuff. And that's not really the goal of the club. The goal is to do some of the work and support it, but it's also to provide a place, a comfortable social atmosphere where more Democrats can come in and gather. And we do that. We have a monthly happy hour every month on it's either the 4th or the 5th Wednesday of the month, depending on how many Wednesdays there are. But we do that at the Cuno Billiard Room, which is in City Marketplace, and it's downstairs from our Democratic office. And I want to mention on a sad note, if anyone is okay with that, that the bartender there, Malcolm, passed away recently, and he was really very, very good to us. So we're very sad about that. And his services are this Saturday, as a matter of fact, at St. Elizabeth Ann Seton Catholic Church at 10 a.m. If anybody who is listening wants to go and pay their respects, Malcolm was a great guy and was very kind to the Democrats there. So we do that on a monthly basis, and we have events like we had last week. We had a beautiful outdoor barbecue, and people like that. They want to come out and know that everybody around them is kind of like-minded on, we're not all the same. It's not a cookie cutter, but, we really kind of feel the same way about some of the larger issues that face Americans right now. And so those things are fun. And as you mentioned, we do table events like First Friday, and we're now alternating hosting that with the Flagler Beach Club. And we will be at Pride Fest, and all of the clubs will be able to come and sit at the table and share their information. And you're right, a lot of people don't know that we exist and are really happy to see us there. So,
but you're absolutely right, and that is a necessary part of the club, that there are fun, exciting opportunities to meet and gather and speak to like-minded people and people that have the same concerns. Are there other times that people can meet?
Yeah, we meet monthly on the second Thursday of the month, every month at 12 o'clock noon at our Democratic headquarters. And we often have a speaker. This week, our speaker is a local therapist, and her name is Amanda Redwine. She will be speaking to us about gender identity, and it is really not as simple as you might think. There is a lot of science behind gender identity and how people feel in their own bodies. So that will be a very interesting discussion. And we also, in response to our members, we wanted to provide a place, an evening event as well, so that our working people can attend these meetings. So we now have what we are calling PCDC After Dark, and that meets on the third Thursday of the month at Democratic headquarters at 6 p.m. And the meetings are probably there. We've been doing it. It's a work in progress, and we're hoping to keep that going as long as we are getting attendees for that meeting. And it's kind of a recap of what had happened the week before. When a speaker is available for the meeting, we'll have the speaker there too. And if they're not, we'll try and record and play the presentation at that evening meeting as well.
Right. Trying to reach out to everybody I know, and I've interviewed Mark Vetter, who's powerhouse, strong, supportive of everything going on, and he's having to do a lot of work and had actually asked the question about having an evening meeting because Palm Coast is growing. And hopefully we're attracting a lot of younger families and younger people. I know when I was canvassing in preparation for Josh Wheel, I ran into a lot of younger families that worked during the day because I would try to canvass dinner time or around that time and run into them that couldn't make daytime meetings. Right. And I was able to hand out and give lists and breakdowns of those kind of opportunities. So it's growing. I don't think we're going away. It's an exciting time to at least reach out to others in the area and realize and let them know that they're not alone.
Yeah.
And everybody seems to be so divided and so opinionated and frustrated, even within the Democratic Party. Some of our, as you've been aware, some of our Blue Forum open opportunity on Fridays have become very passionate and discussed about the different directions of things that are going on as a Democrat. And I always like to pick the minds of others that are Democrat. And so what makes you a Democrat, Donna? What's your passion? What's going on with you?
So you mentioned earlier that my life has always sort of been in service, and it's true.
Yeah.
So, even as when my kids were little, I was the vice president of the PTO for many years, and we did a lot of things to benefit the kids and the school. Those things are what's important to me, and I see Democrats as I see the Democratic Party as being the party of the people and protecting people's rights. Whether it's disability, people with disabilities, senior citizens, veterans, LGBTQ, I see that. That's what speaks to me is having room under the tent for everybody. Everybody has value. Everybody should be able to vote. Everybody should be able to have free speech. I believe that schools should teach history the way it happened and shouldn't be rewriting it. Those are the things that really speak to me. And that's why I find myself as a Democrat, because I could be wrong. I don't even pretend to know all the ins and outs of the parties and their platforms and what their policies are. But I kind of feel like as a general feeling, I get that warm feeling from the Democrats and not from the Republicans. So, Republicans, I feel, vote with their pocketbooks, and Democrats, I think, vote with their hearts. So,
Well, and having four daughters, you might have some future concern or awareness of empowerment of them having choices,
absolutely.
and not only in their medical, but also in just their choices. It seems that we're even attacking the educational side and choosing who's learning what and what their roles are and those kind of things. And I feel the same way as you. I think, and from my background as well, and from my experience being all around the country and all around the world and seeing the lack of choice and the control of political and dictatorship and how people suffer. Yes, 5%, 10% of those people are doing great and everybody else is suffering. And those people need a voice.
They need a voice,
And that's where
absolutely.
your passion comes in and many others. So it's amazing what you're doing, and it's all voluntary. And that's what I try to explain to people. And I laugh when we're accused of being paid. We're paid to go
stand,
wave signs
paid.
and be there. Where is this money?
Where does that come from? Where does
How
even
do
the
you,
thought of
I
that?
want to get on that list, you know?
Yeah.
I want to be paid every time I go to
Yeah.
city council and stand there and say something, I'm giving it away for free.
Yeah.
But that is what we fight for. That is what is important with it. So do you see the Democratic, the Palm Coast Democratic Club growing? Do you see that there's some excitement?
I do, and it's kind of always a challenge for us because our membership is for a year, and everybody's membership expires December 31st. And so our membership climbs all year long, and then it falls off the cliff. And then we have to go back and say, you didn't rejoin. And we get them all back. We get most of them back. And I do see that it's growing. And what I see is that our members are taking more of an interest in what's happening. We've got, some really great members. We've got a really great team as far as our board goes. And for me, as the president of the club, I feel like my goal is to try and be responsive to the members. So we've had members suggest that we do more regarding actual membership drive. So we implemented a membership committee, more as far as events. So we have an events committee because the board can't do it all by itself. We need our members to help execute whatever project it is that we're working on. And we have great members. And I think it's growing. I hope it grows even more. I mean, I heard that at one point, like right now, I think our membership is at about 85 people. And I probably at the end of last year, we were at maybe 125, something like that. So we're down a little bit. I would hope that more people will join. And I think there may have been a time when they were up over 120, maybe 150, not sure. But that was several years ago. So, we're just going along. Just going along, making the best of what we've got.
Politics, you touched on this a little bit of, I wasn't very political. There wasn't a need for it. The variations or the differences between Republican and a Democrat were superficial at best.
Exactly.
And being an independent, and I can't sit here and tell you I haven't voted for a centralist Republican that thought like me. There wasn't that big of a issue. And so most people didn't even pay attention until the elections came up. But those days are gone.
Yeah, they are.
Sadly, the impact or the purposeful efforts by some are keeping it in conversations every day. Hey, what did we hear last night? Oh, I'm going to put a tariff on the movie industry. Or, he changed the name of the Gulf of Mexico / America. None of those affect you and me primarily, but they're conversational pieces. They get people riled up. They get people concerned. I see that as an opportunity. I know that in my precinct, with my co-precinct chair, when we make our efforts to reach out to like-minded Democrats, we're going to inform them about all the clubs and opportunities and places that they can participate. Because I was amazed during the canvassing how one door would be so passionate, very excited, put it in my sign on the road, they were just very involved. But they had no idea their neighbor felt the same way.
Right.
And I would sit there and go, well, Joe next door? And they go, yeah, I know Joe. I said, he's a Democrat too? I didn't know that. I thought I was the only one. And so the efforts that you're making with your club and the efforts that are going on to piggyback on the efforts that this administration's doing is a great opportunity, I feel, for us to find people, and they don't have to be Democrats. I love always sharing with Vicki Haley that when she was doing her big push, which I was somewhat involved with the gas tanker petroleum depot thing, the fuel farm thing, that wasn't partisan.
Not at all.
And there were passionate Republicans that were standing right behind her, with her, beside her, saying, we don't want it either.
But yeah, and I agree, it was not a partisan issue, but yet, I did see someone from that subdivision come up to the podium against the fuel farm that was proposed for there, and he started talking about not wanting this fuel farm in his backyard and how it could be so hazardous. And then he commented they are burning down Tesla dealerships and attacking Tesla cars. What if one of those crazy leftists come to blow up the fuel farm, and how would we deal with it? And it's like, I was like, just speechless. Like, where does that even come from? But even in that conversation, that guy wanted to point his finger and say the reason he didn't want the fuel farm was in case a crazy left-wing person wanted to blow it up. Like, that's insanity. And that's the thing that I really feel very frustrated by, is like, how do we combat the insanity? They're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats, all of this stuff. I mean, the other night at First Friday, a gentleman came up, and he was a Republican, and he was exhausting. He just kept talking and talking and talking. And, the abortion issue came up, and here he is talking about how, they're executing babies after birth. And it's like, no, this isn't happening. This is something that was made up. And the frustrating thing is, how do we as Democrats combat the message that many Americans who watch Fox Entertainment are getting this fabricated message about what Democrats are and what we stand for? And that's the thing that's very frustrating for me. And it's beyond my pay grade, but I would hope that that Democrats at higher levels will combat this.
I think that's a challenge. I run into it a lot myself, and I don't try to argue points that people truly believe in, but I also have started to believe in taking advantage of the media insanity that's happening, which is clearly starting to see in polls that the truth will eventually honestly come out. And as I was talking with you the other day, I don't know if you saw Perry Matrano, who is the chair of the Republican Executive Committee here. Great guy, very smart. I've had phenomenal conversations with him. We both have serious, similar concerns in what's happening here in Palm Coast. And he went before the city council, and I was there as well, when they were discussing the actions with Mayor Norris. And Perry told all of those elected officials that they need to stop this childish games they're doing and get back to running our city for the future of all of us. And that is so true.
Yeah.
And that's a Republican. And so my goal, my hope is to reach across the barrier, the wall, the aisle, whatever. I don't want it to be there, and say, hey, you know what? We're not different. As I said about the gentleman who was upset with me protesting. We're not different. We're all Americans. We all want the same thing. We all want to live in an America that respects its elders, takes care of its children, and does the right thing financially. We all want that.
We all want that.
And trying to work past the anger, like you were experiencing, or the confusion, or the misinterpretation of certain things is the only way I know how to diffuse that, is to start having more known Republican recognized speakers come forward and say enough.
Oh, I agree 100%.
And I think they're there.
Well, I hope so, because we're not seeing a whole lot of them yet. Couple standing up, but then there are those who will just dig in their heels no matter what and say this is exactly what we want.
Yeah, I agree with you.
It's beyond me.
And I think
government should not be a spectacle the way it has become.
Right.
Government should be kind of quietly behind the scenes doing the things that benefit the people.
Right. Exactly.
That's why they're there. And what we have now is a three-ring circus with people saying outlandish things, doing outlandish things. I mean, the things that are happening in our current administration, between the way that our president is making money off of his meme coins, just everything. If that had been happening during a Democratic administration,
they lost their mind.
They would have been in jail. Every bit of them would be in jail. And
Sure.
Here we have this cabinet of clowns, leaking war plans via text message. And so Mike Waltz, who was our representative in Congress and wasn't great then and wasn't available then, and now he's had this high-level position. Now that he's been bumped out of that because of his screw-up, they're not hiring, they're not putting quality people in these positions. They're putting in the yes men and the people who, I don't know, maybe they're all billionaires or something. Sycophants, I think, is the word. Yeah.
Well, my experience of these kind of, I call them flash moments, following the loudest person, isn't sustainable. And I believe, it's in a prayer, that society, which I think is starting to happen now, is going to see through all of these non-value added issues, and that as we get closer to the midterms, that we'll see Congress, elected officials up and down from, we're seeing it right now in our own city council, will start to realize that what they believe in, what they want for the future is at risk. And I don't think many people are that committed that they would be willing to die on Donald Trump's sword on that. And it's happened. It happened in his first term with far less things happening. So, and I believe in good in people, as we just talked about with Perry, and there's others, and I see them locally where they want to do the right thing and are trying to do the right thing. I know that this issue with our mayor, clearly he was trying to do the right thing, but didn't have the methodology to do it correctly, and was frustrated. And it makes me think, and I've raised children as well, typically when they act out, typically when they talk back or they get in trouble, it's a reaction to something else that's happening. And I think we're seeing that in a lot of our elected officials, and we need to just continue to support what it is we believe in and what is right. So, Donna, it's so good to have you come and speak.
Great to be here, Mark.
And I love your passion with the Palm Coast Democratic Club. I foresee that it's going to grow in the next 18 months. I know we're looking for candidates. We're always, if you have a passion, if you're tired of what's going on and you want to know more about how to get involved at the local level, we have seats coming up in the next cycle in November 2026. Reach out, get involved. We need people to participate.
Absolutely.
So, any last thoughts? Anything you want to share?
You talked about growing, and I want to comment. I mean, Palm Coast it's a beautiful city, and I think that our local officials do want to do the right thing for the people of this city. So that's a plus. And with regards to the Democratic Party here, I feel like I am seeing this year a new energy especially regarding our precincts and our precinct leaders. I think a lot more people have stepped up and are willing to do the work, to go and meet new Democrats in their communities, in their neighborhoods, and give them the information. So yeah, I see that as a great thing, and I see that the party will grow, and the club will grow as a result of that. So we welcome, I think sometimes people feel like a club might be sort of a clique or not welcoming, and that is so far from the truth.
Absolutely.
With the Palm Coast Democratic Club. We want everybody to join, and we want to hear everybody's ideas, and sometimes they don't work, but we'll consider all of it. And my favorite thing about doing any of these events or whatever is I like to talk to the people.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and there's no loyalty oath. There's no commitment like some parties require. We welcome anybody that wants
anybody who's a registered Democrat. You do have to be a registered Democrat.
Well,
to be
and
in
there's
the club.
many of those out there, and trying to get them all to row the same direction and vote is what we're trying to do.
That's what we're trying to do.
So again, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Mark. It's been
Guys,
great.
Palm Coast Democratic Club, look it up. Participate. Get involved.
Join us.
You have the power. It's clear every day. So with that, I want to thank you guys for stopping by. Remember, like and subscribe. We're trying to grow this channel. We want to reach out and have more people to hear and share. Till next time, thanks.